Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to create this bar graph with this nice tooltip. This project is inspired by FreeCodeCamp, so let's hit there. The user stories that we are going to fulfill are I can see US gross domestic product by quarter over time, and then I can mouse over a bar and see a tooltip with the GDP amount and exact year and month that bar represents. Also, FreeCodeCamp give us a dataset that we can use to build this product. There are a lot of data, but don't worry, we're not going to use all of this. We're just going to use some of them, and as you can see, this dataset is long. Alright, now let's continue with Codepen. I've already written some HTML code, and it's just the header and then the subheader or the subtitle. And of course I have a class, but we will fill it later, and an ID. For the CSS part, I've also a body with the background light gray, and then a header and a paragraph. I'm going to click in CSS, and as you can see I'm using SCSS, but you don't have to do it, it's not very important. And then in the JavaScript part I'm using jQuery, and then the library D3.js, which is the most important. And you may have noticed that I'm using the third version of D3.js, and if you want to follow me you should use also the third version and not the fourth, which is the latest, because there are some differences and some parts may be quite different. So I've already written in the HTML that I want a class with the graph and an ID with a bar graph. And then in the CSS I'm going to have some changes or maybe some addition, maybe better. For the axis I have a font with 15 pixels, and it will be font family of Arial or sans serif. And then I'm going to have a graph SVG component and an axis path and axis line. But here I'm going to have a fill none and then a stroke. Yes, I think that I'm going to change this to name. Yes, that's better. Okay, so as you can see, the CSS it's pretty simple and you don't even have to use the SCSS. The JavaScript part is the most important, and I'm going to begin with calling the dataset that we just showed before. You need to have D3.js, and then inside there a function with data var dataset equals data.data and drawbar with dataset. Just copy and paste the URL and you are ready to begin. So what we did right now was to call the data using the d3.json, and inside the function we call the function drawbar. So now we need to write the drawbar. We want a margin with top 50, right 20, bottom 50 and left 100. This equals 2 pixels. And then I want a width of 80, 100 and height 400. Now the next section declares the function to determine positioning in the X and Y domain. We'll have a var with min date equals dataset 0, 0 and substr 0 and 4. And the min date, which equals a new date, and it's like a function, so you have to give it a property, and for us it's min date. Now pretty much we will do the same for the max date, but here we will have dataset.length -1 and 0 .substr 04, and then max date equals new date and max date. Alright. Now I'm going to continue and I'm going to write the x-axis, which starts from 0 and keep going until the last date. If you don't use range, everything is upon each other, so now I'm going to use some other functions like scale, domain, and range. The first property, the first variable, that I've already written is the x-axis scale, which equals to d3.timescale.domain, and inside there I'm going to call the functions minDate and maxDate, and also a range of 0 and width. I'm going to do the same with x-axis, only this time I'm going to have a scale linear, domain, and then a return with d1, d comes from data, and a range, which inside there I'm going to have a height and a 0. Okay, let's continue. The declarations for our two axes are relatively simple. So we're going to show the data under the x-axis line, and then we're going to show the data, or the numbers, left of the x-axis line. So for the x-axis, we need the d3.svg.axis.scale and .orient, and the orientation will be bottom, whereas in y, the orientation will be left. As for the tooltip, we're going to style it here, but you can also do it in the CSS part. So you're going to have a d3.selectBody.append div, and for the style you're going to have a position absolute, a padding 4 pixels, background white, border 1 pixel, solid and black, and color white. You can change them and write it as ever you like. This is just my style, but of course yours can be something totally different. I wanted also to mention that I'm going to leave the code in the description box so you can find everything, because maybe it's not very clear what I'm typing now. So I'm going to continue with our SVG. So this block of code selects the ID bar graph on the web page and appends an SVG object to it of the size that we have set up with our width, height, and margins. It also adds a G element that provides a reference point for adding our axes. Here I'm going to append the SVG, and then I'm going to have some attributes with a width, height, class, and the graph SVG component, and then I'm going to append the G elements that I mentioned, and I'm going to close this with an attribute. Now it's writing, it's a little bit weird this part, but hang on. It's like writing HTML in a usual JavaScript file. Alright. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to add the bars to our chart. This block of code that we're going to write right now creates the bar with the select all bar and associates each of them with a data set, which is going to be the data set. We then need to append a rectangle with values for x and y positions and height and width as configured in our earlier code. You need to be very careful here, because otherwise you won't see nothing in the right part. Once again, hang on with me. This function is going to end soon, but it's very important. So, the height is going to be function d and return the height minus the axis scale with d1. And then I'm going to write three very important functions that we are going to write and see just in a little bit. So you'll have the on mouse over with mouse over handler. Okay, let me fix that that thing first, and then we're going to continue with the functions. Yes, maybe this is better. All right. Okay. Now I think that we are ready to continue with our three very important functions, and these are on mouse over with mouse over handler, and on mouse move with mouse moving, and last but not least on mouse out handler. Great. So we append our x-axis, and to place this in the correct position with attribute transform and translate 0, height, and the text is positioned using the dx and dy, and it is rotated with the attribute transform, rotate minus some degrees like 45, so that it is aligned vertically. Once again, we need to append g and add some attributes like the class, x-axis, and transform translate that I just mentioned before. We're going to call the x-axis and select the text. We're going to style it, and then we're going to have the attributes dx and y, and in the end we're going to have the attribute to transform and rotate it by minus 45 degrees. We're going to do the same for the other axis, the y-axis, but this time we're going to rotate it in 90 degrees, and we are also going to have a text with value in billions. Alright, I think it looks good, but we have to write these three functions actually. Okay, I'm just going to type here quite quickly the y-axis. So as I mentioned, it's pretty similar with the x. Only some minor properties are changing. Okay. You can write them however you like. I just like to write it like this, just for the attributes, call, append, and then all the other attributes. but you don't have to do it in that exactly way. Okay, things are looking good. So now let's continue by writing our functions. And I'm going to begin with the mouse handler. So we will have the tooltip and a transition, style, opacity 0.8, and then we're going to style it with left d3.event.pagex plus 10 pixels. Oops, sorry for that. Okay, let me add the pixels, and then I'm going to do the same for the top, but you can do something quite similar with right or bottom. Just here I'm going to use the page Y and it's not X, and the pixels here are going to be 15. Now I'm going to write the HTML, and I'm going to have the date and the billions. So you need D0 and D1. Then we will have the D3.select this, style opacity 0.1, and continue with the mouse out handler. Or mouse moving, maybe that's better. Okay, so you'll have the tooltip, style, okay, now it's better, sorry for that. Let's write this function here. So you'll have the tooltip, transition, style, opacity to 0, and once again the D3 select this dot style opacity and 1, and inside the mouse moving you'll have the tooltip style top D3 dot events page Y minus 10 pixels dot style left D3 dot events page X plus 10 pixels, and you're going to end the mouse moving function with the D3 dot select this dot style opacity 0.8. Just let me fix everything here. I know sometimes I can talk quite fast, but it's because I want to say everything. Okay. I'm also going to leave this code in GitHub because I know that not everyone is using Codepen, so you can also find the same things in GitHub and just download it, copy and paste, and it's going to be working fine. Alright, we're coming to an end. I think that everything looks nice. I'm going to see this in a bigger screen. Alright, the visualization just need to be quite refreshed, sorry. And yes, that's it guys. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Keep coding and learning, and if you like this video, please share and subscribe.